going through a divorce, a lot of pain, a lot of hardship, I would say, was what got me really starting to write about it and podcast about it. Really was coming out of a place of living through it. I'd say living through, at least in my life, what the peak of that pain was divorce. At one point, I contemplated taking my life, and then just all of the aftermath that comes from that, or leading up to the divorce, after it, all of that. That's really what spurred me on to write about porn, to start up the moniker Porn Free Millennial, to talk about it on my podcast. Went on a bachelor party to Colombia that wasn't a place a married guy should go. And that's when God met me, man. Like, that's where Christ met me, because I still remember this to this day. I was in like the guest bedroom and just crying, and just felt like I was like blacking out. Like, as a man, it's just like hard to see anything that's better than that. That's why it's so, like you said, insidious and so dangerous, is because, hey, it's accessible. You can do it anonymously, even though it's not really anonymous. Like, you're still being tracked, even if you're on an incognito mode. It's harder typically to quit porn than those things, because those things, like, there's a consequence of like a physical, like, you could die. You're not gonna die physically by looking at too much porn. Other things are gonna happen to you, right? Like, it's gonna really decay your soul, your integrity, your relationships, so many different things.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Brandon Ward, back with another episode of Order Within. I've got another awesome guest that I'm going to be chatting with today. Mac Dohm, the porn-free millennial, is a writer on Substack, podcaster, video creator, as he's dabbling in, we're finding here. He's working on his video skills, which is cool. Mac, I've been following Mac's journey for a while now on Substack. That's where we met. There's an interesting mixture of people on Substack. Mac happens to be one of those people. And what really drew me to him initially was he's kicked the porn habit. That's something that I've worked really hard at kicking. And I love to see him helping other men kick that habit, because I've found personally, and I know this is what we're going to get into a bit, is how this kind of intercedes with faith. But kicking that habit has been one of the most powerful, important things I've ever done as a man. And so it's really important for me to connect with individuals like Mac, men who are helping other men kill this honestly very, very destructive habit. So, Mac, my brother in Christ, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for having me on, man. Honored to be here.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to talk to you. As I said, I've been following you for a little while. We've been in touch, I guess, probably for like almost a year at this point now, because we've met a few times. And Substack's cool, man. Like, right now you're out in the Colorado area, you're traveling around. I'm in North Carolina. So I mean, it's one of the things that I love about the internet. There's upsides and downsides, but we gives us a chance to connect and have conversations like this. And so I'm excited to talk with you more about kind of what prompted you to do the work that you're currently doing, with Porn Free Millennial. I'm also a millennial, so like your brand really resonated to me early on, as a millennial myself. So I love that name. But honestly, man, like the last few months, I've really noticed a big shift for you and your content, and just how much you've been bringing Christ into the conversation and sharing your perspective on those things. And as you know, I've made a pivot with my content. I focus a lot of that on biblical principles, Christ, and really just trying to live an honorable Christian life, in a modern world that has some very interesting ideas about what that means.
Totally.
so, so Mac, what kind of got you into the space that you're in now regarding your journey with porn? And
Yeah, so what got me into this space? Well, it was, you know, uh, going through a divorce, a lot of pain, a lot of hardship, I would say, was what got me really starting to write about it and podcast about it. Really was coming out of a place of living through it. I'd say living through, at least in my life, what the peak of that pain was uh, divorce. At one point, I contemplated taking my life, and then just
yeah,
all of the aftermath that comes from that, or leading up to the divorce, after it, all of that. That's really what spurred me on to write about porn, to start up the moniker Porn Free Millennial, to talk about it on my podcast, because I think I saw how much destruction it had in my life, and it as in my relationship with it, right? It's not like I'm free from that. Like, I made the decision to look at porn to have it embedded in my life, but really, I was able to, I think, see and live through, where it can go if you don't head it off, you don't take it seriously, if you're not mature about it. And I think that hopefully my story can help other people out that are married. Like, I talk a lot about my little brother who's uh, about 7 years younger than me. We talk to each other every day. We do accountability check-ins with each other. He actually sent me one right before this, and I'll send him one right after we're done. But I
Nice.
remember a big part of it was, he's been married now for, gosh, I think it's 6 years now, and that was a big part of when I was going through my divorce. I was like, I don't want to see my little brother go through this too. Of how painful it is, and other people as well, right? Like, I don't want to see you go through it. I don't want to see people I know. And if there's something I can do to help, uh, call the signal out and say, hey, 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 there's a shipwreck up here. Don't go this way. Steer clear. Keep your eyes peeled, keep your eyes focused. Don't listen to the sirens pulling you in to the rocks. I think that's a big part of it. But really interesting though, Brandon, was I actually created Porn Free Millennial while I was married. I was 2 years sober at the time, doing a lot of work on myself.
Mac, real quick,
Yeah, yeah,
real quick. How long were you married for?
yeah,
And
sure. So
just
I was
context,
married.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was married for 5 years. My
Yep.
divorce finalized in March 2023. If you guys see my
How old
back,
were when y'all got married?
let's see, at 28, I think I was 28. I think she was,
Gotcha.
25. And so, yeah, like, pretty young. If you guys see my background here, so I work and travel out of an RV. So that's another thing that I did after my divorce was I bought an RV, and I've been working remotely, traveling out of it since. But, yeah, I think it was probably, like, in the middle of our marriage, maybe a little past the middle of it was when I was doing really well with my sobriety, and I actually had the idea of doing a podcast and writing about it because I was seeing all the benefits that it was, creating in my life. And then, we moved from, like, Denver to Colorado Springs, which is about an hour and a half away from really a lot of the things that were helping me out with my recovery, right? I was going to a biblical counselor who's helped me with like sex addiction, which I think I later found out that it wasn't much of a sex addiction thing, more than being addicted to porn, which I think are two separate things. But he really helped.
That's something I would like
Yeah.
to unpack too, by the way, Mac. I think that's a like I want you to keep going
Totally.
in your story, but I think that is often connected, and it's not really like I think a porn addiction could maybe lead to addictive behaviors around
Sure. Sure.
sexual addictions. But anyway, I think that's a good distinction though.
Yeah, real quick, is the best way I think someone described it to me before was like porn addiction is more of like an inward thing. Like, you go in, like, you're more kinda, like, acting inward in isolation, and then sex addiction's more of, like, it's an outward thing where you're connecting with other people, that way, and that was never really my issue. Like, I never cheated on my wife or anything, to that extent. Now, I think still looking at porn, I consider that cheating, like, you're
Christ would consider that cheating
I
as
think
well,
so.
Mac,
Yeah, and that's the
based on
ultimate
his teachings.
that's the ultimate, that's the ultimate teaching, the ultimate truth, right? Uh,
Mm.
but with that being said, I had a lot of good supports, in Denver. My family lived pretty close, friends, Bible study, and then when we moved and we bought our first house, there was that initial rush of moving somewhere. We were closer to her family, a little further away from my support groups, all that, which was fine. But I didn't really pick that back up when we moved. And I think like the old habits started to come back in that really, I think I was doing such a good job because I was getting in a good routine, and my spiritual health was really good, and physical health, like relationships, passions, like things were really on point. And then with the switch up of moving, geographically and just not really picking those things back up, I started to slip into bad habits. So it was really interesting because I actually created Porn Free Millennial. I think it was September 2021 or 2022. Sometimes I'm bad with dates, but I remember creating it, man, and like I was like writing like my first thing, and then I just never really hit publish, and then I had a relapse a couple of months later. Went on a bachelor party to Colombia that wasn't a place a married guy should go, and I just wasn't really thinking ahead of that. It really wasn't. Um, yeah, I just didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and I think that and the relapse really caused a lot of pain for my wife at the time and opened up a lot of old wounds. And I think that's really like when like, crap hit the fan, so to speak. We had some other moments before that, right, where she caught me. That's really when I started my recovery journey was probably about 6 to 8 months with when we first started our marriage. That's like where I really started recovery. So we had some ups and downs, but I was really rebuilding things, and then I had that relapse, the bachelor party, and then that's like where I hit a really, really bad low where I was like, just I remember this, and this is where I'm gonna start talking about my faith because this is like where things clicked. Uh, but I just was so ashamed and felt like I was in such a dark place because yeah, I truly love my wife, and these things I think Paul writes about in Romans, right? Like we do these things that we don't want to do, and yet we do them. We're so conflicted, and uh, I think a part of it sometimes with porn, right, is we just feel like we try so hard, and then it's still not good enough. But we're leaving Christ out of the equation when we're thinking like that, right? Because we're never going to be good enough. But He gives us the grace, right, and He loves us nonetheless when we return to Him. But, anyways, man, I just was like, because I knew, I was like, I think this is done, like, this marriage that was, starting to get some life, just got the wind knocked out of it. I remember my ex telling me, like, her love tank we were reading this book, like, the love languages. I don't know if you ever heard about it's a really good book, but she was just like, "I think my love tank's broken," like, "I don't think it's fixable." And, yeah, at that point, I just felt like I didn't wanna go on, like, there's nothing more to live for because to me, I just put all my eggs in the basket of the physical world and this marriage and tied everything to that, and it was ending, or it had a death blow, I would say, like a crucial hit to it that, ended up being fatal. And I think I tied myself so much to that and internalized so much of it being my fault that I just remember just saying one night, like, like, why does this matter anymore? Like, it doesn't matter, And that's when God met me, man. Like, that's where Christ met me because I still remember this to this day. I was in like the guest bedroom and just crying and just felt like I was, like, blacking out, like, because 'cause I've never been that way before, Like, I've never really considered myself ever feeling that way, but it was overwhelming, like, this sense of just grief and, despair and darkness, and I just remember it was like a
You were distraught.
I
You were
was
fully distraught.
yeah, and there was no way to, like, control like, I in my head, I'm telling myself, like, "Hey, man, come on, like, you're fine, like, you can get through this." But there's this overwhelming feeling of like, "No, like, this is not okay." Like, this and in a way, it was like a surrender. Like, it was like a pure
Mhm.
surrender, like, there was nothing else. Like, there wasn't a part, like, where I was, like, physically doing anything, right? But, like, mentally, I was just, like, checking out. And I think, at least for me, that it almost brought a sense of clarity of, like of what really matters, and that's Christ, and that's our savior, because there was no other distractions, right? Like, I just cleared out everything. There was no more, like, lying to myself. It was just like, boom. I'm in deep water, and I felt like I was in this, like, raging river. That's how I've described it in some writings and podcasts, was just I'm being swept up, I'm drowning, and, God was that boulder. I was just praying, like, "Just save me, like, just please," I'm begging. And, yeah, you hit a boulder when you're in a roaring river, not doesn't doesn't feel great, right? Knocks the wind out of you, but you're alive, you have
Maybe
something.
break your arm, something
Yeah,
else?
like, my whole body felt like it was broken, but I was alive, right?
Mm.
And I just remember that, like, just Christ being that boulder in the river, just stopping me from drowning. And, that's when I got in touch with, a therapist I've used for a while, uh, great guy, actually has a Christian metal band that he plays, has his own dojo, like, really
That
really cool dude, but
dude,
yeah,
dope.
and he was the person I started to talk to, uh, with counseling, with therapy, and reconnecting with him was really helpful because he helped bring in uh, a lot of faith into where I was at. We did a little couples counseling for a bit. The marriage went on for a little bit, probably a little bit more than a year, and then we just decided to go separate ways, which was really hard. But with that being,
Mac, let's pause right
yeah, yeah,
there. Let's pause right there if that's okay.
sure.
Because there's a lot of threads that I'd like to pull on if that's
Uh-huh.
okay. Uh, First, was this something that you and your wife had talked about before you got married? Was it was it really important to her that you stopped? Was that something that she was initiating? How did that come out initially?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting thinking back on it, at least from what I can remember, it was something that we talked about. We did do marriage counseling with the pastor that married us, and I think at the time I was sober, I was doing pretty well, but it's kinda one of those things that I think, and people talk about this all the time, but I think it's true, is I think a lot of people, and me at the time, just thought, "Hey, I'm getting married. That's gonna solve everything." You know? I'm not gonna have to
Us.
worry about
Yep.
looking at porn anymore, like, once I'm married and I'm with a woman and, can have sex with her all the time. I think all these people, when we're young, we're just like, "Hey, that's exactly how it all works," right? Uh, so, yeah, we talked about it. I think I was probably, like, 6 to 8 months sober at that point. I think I was feeling pretty good at that moment, but, yeah, we talked about it, but I don't really think I had, like, the language, to really fully understand it, and that's why it came back up for sure, was because throughout my whole life, I grew up Catholic, so I always had that guilt with me, but I never really felt like I had the tools with it. Never really had that talk with my dad, like, about it. It was kind of, I don't know. It just felt like I wasn't really that equipped, that mature to really understand the full depth of it and how deeply ingrained it was. Because I think that's what a lot of men feel, is just like, "Hey, that was just something I did when I was younger, and I can just quit it easy, no problem." And, maybe for, like,
Simple.
a small percentage, and again, I'm just talking from my gut here, but maybe a small percentage can do that, but I'd argue on the whole, it's not that easy, right? Like, you gotta do some deep introspective work, and you have to really evaluate your relationship with your savior and how you are walking into that relationship every single day, intentionally, and I just wasn't there. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think we talked about it, but it just really wasn't a thing, and I think when we were dating and I was courting her, it really wasn't that much of an issue for me. Like, I just didn't really look at it. Um, from what I can remember, it was a little bit dormant, I think, at the time, just because of, gosh, you get so excited, right? Just what an exciting time it is when you're courting somebody and you're engaged, you're getting married. It's such a fun time, right? And I think that's part of the thing with porn too, is when you're caught up in things that you're really passionate about or you're in love with somebody, I think it can lay dormant for a while because you're just not giving it a lot of time, but it will creep up when, hey, you get in your first fight or things, maybe she doesn't wanna be intimate that night, or, hey, you're up late drinking, you haven't done that in a while. Like, things like that will just start to slip in, right? And I think that's, like, where porn's just
Well,
kinda
and
waiting.
that's kinda got you, wasn't it? That kinda got you on your bachelor party, wasn't it? Because you said you were sober, and did you drink at that trip too? Like, you hadn't drank for a while and you ended up drinking
Well,
too? Or
no,
was
it
it
was
just
well, I had a relapse before that trip. Um,
Mm.
and, the trip itself, it was just, like, I wasn't in the right place. Again, I didn't physically cheat or anything. Was more trying to get people out of trouble. But it it was not like without going into like huge detail about it, this wasn't a place for a married guy to be. And I think that really
Yeah.
was hurtful to my ex, when we talked through it, and being
Just as you were there, like a part of it, like, effectively.
totally, yeah, just being a part of it,
Yeah.
being there. I look back on that and I have a lot of like, yeah, I think if I was closer with God at the time, if I didn't have that relapse and lie about it by omission, I think I would have been a better man and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay home, and not go. But hey, those are things that happen in life that you have to learn from, experiences like that. You can't just look back and just stay there. You have to be able to grow from it, right? But yeah, so I think that's just maybe hopefully helps explain to the audience listening just a little bit of the story there with things. But yeah, I think a lot of the writing that I do and the podcasting is I think just living through that really like there was a lot of hard nights with myself, with my ex-wife, uh, just difficult conversations. Like I live through those things, right? Like we all do, especially those of us who've struggled with porn, and especially those of us who struggled that are trying to do better, that are trying uh to get on the right path. Like that's a part of it, right? It's a part of it is having tough conversations and having moments where you're just like, I don't know like what I'm doing or I feel lost or I
It's so
yeah,
normalized. It's so
totally.
normalized in our culture, in our society, and not even just that porn is normal and it's considered healthy to consume, but just being on social media can subject you to pornography whether you want to or not. Like, I mean, and graphic stuff. That was one of the reasons why I nuked X for a while,
Oh yeah,
Mac, was
man.
like I got tired of randomly going through comments or trying to and then just seeing literally, women like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
like
it's
it's
like
just it's
you're, like, already opted in, like, you have to actually opt out of it,
yeah,
which is
I know,
not good.
which yeah, I know. Exactly. But that so to your point, man, it's like without being prepared, without having a support system, and that sounds like that was a big part of your journey. When you were in Denver, you had your family, you had a Bible study, you had friends around, you had groups that you were a part of, you had a counselor that you were talking to. Like, so, but then y'all move, you kind of lose that support system. And I think this is what happens with addictions. We forget that it's not just not doing the thing that we're trying to do,
Totally.
it's that we've got to set ourselves up to replace the thing. So, like, if you're killing a habit or quitting porn or drinking, what are you going to do in its place now? Like, when you go in public, what's your plan for when you go to a bar and meet friends to have something to drink that's not an alcoholic drink? Like, you literally have to think ahead because, and I know, like, I know you know what I'm saying because this is part of it. And that's the underestimated component that I've found that we do, in particular with stuff like porn. Alcohol and stuff is a different thing. There's a lot more
Mm,
infrastructure around that too, just for people that are trying to be sober. There's non-alcoholic stuff now, but like porn, man, it's very insidious, and there's just not the infrastructure yet. So one, I appreciate you out kind of laying the groundwork, man, because there's, I mean, just not a lot of people that focus on this stuff. I know when I started this journey, I wasn't married to my wife yet, but it was kind of what you described with Paul and Romans is I didn't want to be attracted to other women. Like I loved Ashley. I knew I wanted to be with her. And yet my mind kept drifting towards women that I didn't even know, like women that I would see at bars and that's what you realize, like that's the flesh that we're wrestling with. And you don't realize how deep that habit runs, man. And I'm sure you were young. If I remember correctly, you were like 9 to 12 when you first viewed porn
yeah,
based on your story, I
yeah,
think.
10, yeah.
Uh, so like and it just becomes such a normalized thing you don't even see it anymore as a habit. It's like it's just a part of your life. And I don't know about you, Mac, but like for me, I I was doing it because I felt bad about myself, and it was something that I was doing to make me feel better emotionally. It didn't work. It was terrible at that, especially as I got older. I know you know, like when we're young, it's the thrill. It's all the stuff we've never known. It's really exhilarating. You literally have euphoric experiences. It's crazy. But what you're not, and we don't know this, and we know it now, but like we're training our brain, we're shaping the way our mind operates, how it views the world. And that's what I didn't understand until I became an adult and started doing research on this, because it was for me, it was the fact that I was with Ashley, but I kept having these impulses that I didn't want to pursue. And this was even for me, Mac, before I started reading the Bible, really before I started to really walk with Christ. But anyway, my point is like we can want things or not want them. And if we're not careful, if we don't have that infrastructure, if we don't have a plan in place, like we can just get derailed by a tough day or a moment or a trip, because that's how this kind of stuff sneaks up, man. And you know as well as I do, bro, the devil is sneaky fool that loves to creep right in when we're at our weakest.
Oh yeah, man.
Um, you had the moment with your wife where you went to the bachelor party. And that was in the middle of your marriage, it sounded like, about the halfway point, if
Yeah,
I'm
maybe a little
correct. Or
bit
was it a little
past.
further
Yeah, a little
along?
bit past that.
Yeah. So y'all tried though for a year or two after that, and it just wasn't working, or what happened?
Yeah, and not to go into super details, right? Because I don't want to talk too
No,
much
no, no.
about my
Yeah.
ex and everything, because I respect her and still love her. But yeah, I just kind of think that there was a lot of hurt there for her. For me too, but I think a lot of it was there, and it just kind of got to this point where it was just like, yeah, I just don't know if she's gonna want to keep going, and that's where it was at, and I agreed. I think sometimes when you love somebody, you just gotta be like, hey, I'd rather see you, uh, you know, be happy, hopefully, right? And so yeah, it was tough, especially being a Christian, and going through that and being raised Catholic as well. I'm like, oh my gosh, like going through a divorce it's a big deal, it's a really big deal. But luckily it was amicable and still have a good relationship and all of that. But yeah, I think we try to work through it. You could look back in hindsight and be like, well, did we do this? Did we do that? All that stuff. But uh I think, yeah, why I'm sharing that, I guess, is just because it can there can be like a lot of pain caused by our actions, right? And how we handle them. Uh One of the biggest things was just not being honest about it. And that happened a lot more early than the relationship than later. Like I said, though, towards the end, there was still that relapse I had that I didn't tell her about right away. I used a few excuses, I think. I think she had COVID at the time. There was this massive windstorm. It literally was biblical, man. It was like the day after my relapse. The neighbor's cottonwood tree broke in half and nearly like hit our house. It was just like laying in the yard, this giant cottonwood. And I literally was just like, like God is putting the wrath on me right now. Like that's just how I felt.
Yeah.
you know, like I just felt it was like this
Yeah.
biblical storm. And of course, like kind of felt like Jonah. I kind of just hid until I was in the belly of the well. That's kind of how I felt like, where I could have, in hindsight, you look back, you're like, hey, if I would have just told the truth, explained to her, why I had this relapse and just the build up, maybe things could have been different, right? And I think that's why being honest is so important, and why it can be so hard. I think when we are in the midst of the addiction and whatever word you want to call it, addiction, or you have a problematic relationship with it. I think the thing about porn that's really tough is it thrives in secrecy. That's how it lives, is in the darkness, in the shadows. Like very rare do you hear like, hey, like let's go. It's not like, someone's like, hey, Brand, let's go get a drink at the bar. It's not like, hey, Brand, hey, how about you come over to my house? We'll pop in we'll turn on a porn website and watch it together. Like, that just doesn't happen, right? Like, it's something that you do alone, you do in private.
When you're kids,
Yeah,
like when we were my buddies when we were kids, but that wasn't the same either, right?
yeah.
You're kids. It's a very different scenario. That doesn't happen. As adults, it's almost always done in secrecy, alone, and shame. There's almost always shame associated. Like Mac, when I think back to those moments, I never felt good, man. Even though that was the goal, like you just end up feeling shame. You feel worthless. And I know you know, man, like it's very insidious. But so it's something you do alone. Like that's the difference. But like
Yeah, and something too, just to hit on that point as well, we feel shame because we're good, because we're good people, and that's something that I think when I, like, was really just, like, looking at porn a lot, I almost just calloused myself so much just to stop, like, feeling shame, just to feel numb, and that's where it gets kinda dangerous as well, right, is because I think shame I've always struggled with it, probably since 2nd grade, because I thought I was going to hell, in 2nd grade, just because of my Catholic school. It just felt like, "Hey, I looked at porn, it's a cardinal sin, I'm screwed." That's how I felt, you know? And it's not like I don't know if someone hourly told me that, but that's how I felt when I was in 2nd grade. So, I carried shame with me for a while. But I do think that there is, it is necessary to have it. It is necessary to have guilt too. You know, it's a built-in mechanism because you don't know God if you don't know the devil. You know, like there has, you know, like that's like I think literally that's what Paul talks about as well, like with like the commandments and things like that is like we have to we have like the being that there's commandments, that's the acknowledgement that there is evil, you know, and because there's evil, there is good as well. And when we do something as a sin and we feel shame about it, that's our good nature saying, "Hey, like, you can do better." You know, like, "You can do better." But I think the hard part is when we're younger, and even when we get older, we still have this internal, instinct, habit, this trick that gets triggered and tripped. Like, a tripwire happens, and we go to porn. And I think you were talking about this earlier, and I agree with you a lot, is and I wrote about this in my newsletter on Monday, but, I think oftentimes people mistakenly talk about porn so much in a sexual lens, but I think it's more about, like, our we should be asking, more about, like, our wounds. Like, what wounds do we have,
yep,
and what kinda comfort are we seeking?
it's
It's
emotional.
very emotional. Yeah, it's incredibly emotional, and it's tied to something that's very addictive, which is naked, beautiful women. Like, as a man, it's just, like, hard to see anything that's better than that. That's why it's so, like you said, insidious and so dangerous is because, hey, it's accessible, you can do it anonymously, even though it's not really anonymous, like, you're still being tracked even if you're on in incognito mode. It's always like,
Don't
who's watching
matter.
you when you're watching it, right? Somebody
Mhm.
is. Somebody knows. But yeah, and they sell people's data and all of that, all these porn sites. That's how they make a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
money. But anonymous, accessible, and then affordability, right? It's free. So I think that's like what makes it so much more deadly and dangerous than other things because like and I've talked about like my little brother, he's a addiction counselor. And he's like, man, like people come in, they're struggling with hard drugs. It's harder typically to quit porn than those things because those things like there's a consequence of like a physical, like you could die. You're not gonna die physically by looking at too much porn. Other things are gonna happen to you, right? Like it's gonna really decay your soul, your integrity, your relationships, so many different things. Like if you're paying for it, right, financially, you're gonna lose sleep, you're gonna be stressed, angry. Like there's so many like things, right? But it's not like physically, like you're just gonna die on the spot. Like if you drink too much alcohol. Uh, so I think that's why it's such a it's a tough thing, but also there's ways clearly like you and me are talking about to where there's hope. Like there's ways that you can actually kick this, and doesn't mean that you're just gonna be sober for the rest of your life because I think there's a difference. I talk about recovery a lot. Recovery and sobriety aren't always the same thing. I think sobriety is a byproduct of recovery. When you're in recovery, basically what that means is you're going north, like you're going somewhere. You got purpose, and that purpose doesn't include whatever that habit is. It's not a part of your identity, the person that you're becoming. So I look at it as like a daily thing, like one day at a time with your recovery is, am I that person today? Am I that person today that doesn't need porn in their life? To wherever I need that comfort, I can go somewhere else that's healthy. Ultimately, go to Christ for that healing, not porn. Like, that's kind of the decision I think about, and that's I think you're talking about lately, I've been really talking a lot about and integrating, I think, my faith more into things. I think, yeah, like, there's been a real hunger for that, I think, a hunger to sip from Christ's cup lately, and
Well, it's substance, man. It's real substance.
yeah.
And Mac, you and I know, man, like if you really search the world for substance and truth and meaning, you land on Christ. You come back to him. Like that's why it is so critical. And I want to say this because when I started the my porn free journey, I didn't really have Christ yet.
Mm.
I had this cross on, but I didn't really so he was with me. I just didn't know it, and I know that we're that him driving us. And I think to your point, man, like Christ becomes that North Star. That's something that we can remind ourselves every day. Who is this identity that he has created in me? And who is it that he's inspiring me and driving me to be? Who does how does he want me to die to the old ways and become new again through him? Like these are things that we have to wrestle with. And that's why it is so important to be step by step, day by day like that. And because I love what you're talking about. It's I think so many points, even with faith in general, we think about these deliverance moments as, I was delivered from evil or I was delivered from this habit. But like, man, eh, if we're not careful, we slide right back into those old things, and that's why having Christ is so critical because there's going to be days, man, where you just want to go back. You want to get a taste. You're having a terrible day, you're feeling lonely, you just want to hit. And I know it might sound crazy, but that you were saying it earlier, all those other things, the hard drugs, there are real life consequences. You go to prison, you physically harm yourself, there's legal consequences to that. Not to mention actual barriers, cost money. You've got to find a place to do it. Like if you're gonna go do heroin, man, like it's a lot more to that than opening up your iPhone and going to a website
Totally.
and looking at a video, man. So it's like it. I love that you brought that up because I've said stuff similar to that. Thankful for your brother being an addiction
Yeah,
counselor,
how
man.
cool is
Like he
that?
would know.
Yeah,
Like it's but that's it, because he's right, right? There's friction on those other things. There's no friction with porn,
right.
and so to your, I love that. That's what I love about this pivot for you, man. Is you're really grounding in Christ, drinking from the cup of Christ, as you said. Like because it's so. I think it's just so easy. We're going to lose that spiritual battle because that's why it's not a fleshy battle. You were talking about that earlier. It's not like people think about porn. It's a sexual thing. Oh, we're sexually driven.
Yeah,
It's all
boys
this
being boys.
physical. Yeah, and, maybe when we're 15,
Right.
maybe, right? We're primed to the max, you got testosterone, you don't know what the heck to do with it. Like, there's some truth in there, but if it's a habit you've been doing for 20 plus years, something that you just and you're getting more secretive with it, it's not just a physical thing. That's not what it is. The emotional part is so real, and I think for me, Mac, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is it was a substitute for the spiritual void that you feel, which is again where Christ sits in our life when we come to him. And that's why I just appreciate it because for me, man, I'm to the point in my life now with this walk with Christ and reading the Bible and meeting other people is it's if it doesn't point back to Christ as the solution in some
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
then I'm kind of skeptical,
Yeah, totally.
like is it really lasting? It's
Great point, man.
so what for you, what you because you were sharing earlier, I kinda wanna go back a little bit. You're talking about this moment where you're literally are like, you're crying out, you're in despair. Christ comes to you, like, you literally experience Christ. Is this when you're still married? Is this
No, that's when I got back from that trip.
post-marriage?
I think we were married a little bit, probably a year and a half after that, trying to work through things. That was what spurred me on to call and get help with that therapist. But yeah, that was like when I realized that my marriage would likely end. As when the D word was flying around, everything. That's always a terrible word to hear, the divorce
Yeah.
word, right? But, yeah, man, that was definitely the lowest point of my life for sure. And it's kinda crazy when you before that, you always hear stories about people saying that, Christ, found me in my lowest moment. And until you really experience it, and I guess it's interesting because that lowest moment, I guess, could always change. Like someone's lowest moment doesn't have to be like my lowest moment. Like everyone has their different lowest moments, but that lowest moment for me, I just felt completely stripped, just laid bare. There wasn't anything else really. There was two decisions. Do I go this way and go in the darkness, or and get drowned and suffocated by this despair, or do I hold on to the boulder? I'm broken, I'm devastated, but I'm alive. There's hope there. That's really what I come back to a lot. I think when I think about things is, hey, he was there for me. He's always going to be there for me. I think that's a huge thing with faith with Christ is you are never alone, ever, never alone. And the only times you are alone is when you convince yourself that you are, when you're lying to yourself and saying, "No way that Christ could love me for what I've done." That's
Mm.
the biggest lie, and I think that's what porn is.
Never
I think
told.
I've written about this too, but it's like porn's like it's like a blackmail scheme. It's like we're doing like the Epstein list, like we're putting ourselves in the Epstein files, when we're looking at porn, right? Like we're blackmailing ourselves, right? And it's like spiritual blackmail,
Dude.
to where the devil's like, "Hey, man, hey, do we want to put on display all the porn sites you went to and all the things that you looked at, all the depraved things, and in the court of God, and you're going to be guilty, man, and you're uh the devil's always like along for the ride, but then once the ride stops, he just leaves you out there to dry, you know. He's like, "All right, cool. Like have fun with that. You're screwed now." But God's
What he loves to do. He loves to whisper to us, mislead us, and then watch us trip up into a trap, and then say, "All right, peace out, man. You're on your own. Sorry about that. Sorry I misled you. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
Ooh,
I think something
hey."
too that, I've heard a bunch, from, and also, besides the therapist, someone that also has been really helpful for me, his name's Vern Tomke. I've talked about him a lot, but he's a pastor. I do his coaching program, been doing it for a couple of years. He has a great podcast too. It's called Finding Traction, and, you can find that on Apple or Spotify. And he also has a podcast called, Pastors on Porn, that he's done. But he's told me this. My therapist told me this. Many people I've talked to that are Christian have told me this. But I think typically, like when you are getting close to God, you're glorifying Him. That's when the devil is going to come at you really hard. And I think back in my life on a lot of moments. I mean, that's like what happened when I created my Substack initially when I was married and I was all fired up. I was really felt like, I was doing well with my faith too, and it's just like leaving that door open just a bit. Doesn't matter how strong in your faith you are. I mean, it helps, but if you kind of open that door and leave that weakness there, uh, you better bet that that's going to be capitalized on, right? So, but that's the thing, man. Like you and me, like it's not we're gonna live sin-free lives from today. We're gonna have our faults. We're gonna make mistakes. But if we can just remember that there's grace, there's a doorway open for repenting and for uh, experiencing His love, you know, and I think that is one of the best things in my life the best moments I have of bliss is where I experience Christ's love and I can just live in it. I can sit in it. It can lift me. Is just that feeling that you get to where it connects, like you have a harmony within your mind. It's like your brainwave frequencies are connecting with uh, the Holy Spirit and you just feel that power within you. You feel strong. You feel like you could just whoop the devil right there and then because you have the power of God on your side. I think that channel opens up when you take the steps day by day to slowly remove these incongruities from your life, right? These conflicts. Because I think you were talking about this earlier, but I think the void that is there, the God void, the spiritual void, right? I think when we are really in it with porn, it creates a bigger divide because we have that shame, but we do it anyways. And that creates a bigger void to where it's like we feel like we're gonna try to do a long distance call with God and he's not even gonna answer. That's like what we tell ourselves. Or like, hey, I don't have any service right now because I'm just way out in the wilderness, right? But it's like God's like staying like right next to us, but we're just choosing not to look. We're like looking that way. He's like here, and we're like, ah, he's never gonna answer. Yeah, I don't have any service right now, and I think that's what porn does is it makes us feel so far away from His love, but it's because we're in the world and we're in the flesh. We're living there. We're not living in the spirit. And I think that's like why that divide feels so wide and it feels so dark is because I love Romans, man, where he's talking about the flesh and like Jesus's teachings, when he's talking about it. It really hits different, I think, when you're in recovery, when you see those words. Because flesh obviously it's not all about sex and everything. It's about the material world. Uh but I think definitely when we are sexually sinning, it's just a different it's a different feeling of hurt that we're trying to comfort, and we're comforting it, through a way that can really embed itself like in our daily habits into our body. Uh, but yeah, man, I don't know. I sorry about that little soapbox there. If I was rambling a little bit.
Oh, no, dude, I love it, Mac. No, well, I think what's for me and what's so telling about what you're describing is the sexual sin component of what porn is for us, especially we are spiritual beings, right? Like, it's it's one of the most effective ways to sever that spiritual connection that we have and really anchors us in this material rooted, physical, fleshy world. I think the devil knows that. And I think, especially for men, like, because for me, Mac, and I'm curious about your perspective on this, but I reclaimed so much of my
Totally.
innocence
Yeah.
once I find and the way I look at little kids, the way I look at my daughter, the way I interact with them, the way I experience joy, food, things. The way honestly I'm able to enjoy my wife and her beautiful body and who she is as a spiritual being. Like, and when I read, and this is what also why reading the Bible has been so powerful for me, man. Like, reading some of these proverbs and psalms, and they're talking about how a good loving wife is a gift from God, and how loving her body and enjoying her breast and doing all these things, it's all in there. That's why looking at that commitment to our partner is so special and powerful, because it creates an innocence, and it also allows me to take all this sexual energy. And something that's happened for me too, Mac, is like, I can look at women now, and I've said this before, I can look at them like a beautiful sunset. Like, if you see a beautiful
Yeah.
woman,
Can
like,
appreciate.
if you see a sunset, you're not trying to, yeah, I'm not trying to have sex with the sun, though, like, that's not, like, it's
Never heard it
beautiful,
that way,
but,
but
like,
it's
you
beautiful.
can, right, it's a wonderful thing, but, like, you can move away
Yeah.
from it, you can appreciate it, so it's like, allows you to do that, and I think and I genuinely believe this, man, because we're spiritual beings. I think there's something in our signature that goes out differently when we really work to kill this habit, because there's a baseline of trust that I think that's inherent that gets corrupted
Yeah.
when we're consuming porn, because it's, whether we want to or not, it's turning our brain to view all women, as sexual
Totally.
objects for our own. And the thing is what we don't realize is it's training us to be voyeurs
Big
too.
time. Big
So
time.
when you're out in public and you see women, That's actually the way your brain is getting trained is to respond to physical women out there. You're not doing it with them, but you're now viewing them sexually. Like,
And
and so, dude, that can impact your relationship with your daughters, their friends. Like, and I'm not, it's a slippery slope. So my point is for men, you said this earlier, talking about sexual sin, Mac. It's like it's a crazy big door that can open up to all kinds of other things, man. Now we're lying, now we're deceiving, now we're hiding the truth. Now we're like it's just
Yeah,
also my soapbox,
yeah.
but like you know what I'm saying, right? That's the challenge
Oh,
of it.
big time. It compromises you, right? Compromises your
Mm,
integrity until you meet it, right? Until you repent for it, you're honest about it. I remember, and that was really well said, all of that. I was just gonna say, I remember too, just like vacations or really good moments that maybe on that trip, right? I looked at porn, and then talked about it like a week or two after the vacation, right? And it's like, okay, well, that whole thing was ruined now, in her mind, right? And in my mind too, because it's just like, okay, well, any intimacy we had in between that time, uh, these moments I had, there was something I was hiding from her. There was something that I did that betrayed her trust. And I think about that a lot too. And like what you're saying, man, I think when you have a clear conscience, you've opted out of this and you're living with some clarity and you're seeing people as people, not as objects. Everything's sweeter, man. Like, and I do think like my relationship with women has been so amazing. And not even like what I mean, just relationship as in just with a colleague or a friend or a family member, whoever, right? Uh, like you said, I think that like a woman interacting with me is going to have a certain, they're going to sense a certain level of respect from me in the way that my body language is, how I talk to them, how I look them in the eyes. That was a hard thing for me for a while when I was addicted to porn was like looking people in the eyes. Uh, even like shaking people's hands. Like my dad always taught me, shake someone's hand, look them in the eyes. And I remember there were points in my life where I did that, but I just didn't feel good about it. Like I didn't feel like I was really giving you the full me. Even though they're like, hey, like Mac's great, keeps his word, all that stuff. There was a part of me is like, well, do I keep my word? Am I telling the truth? If I can't even tell it to myself, I can't even talk to God about it, or if I feel like I'm hiding it from him, then how am I supposed to be trusted? That's how I felt, and maybe one could say that maybe that's overthinking it, but it's so much better just to have that level of harmony in your life to where it's not even a question. You're just like, hey, like this is who you see. I'm an open book, and I'm not worried about being an open book. Because I think that's the thing too in our culture is people are so deathly afraid of making mistakes or being seen as somebody that's made a mistake. And I've been open on my podcast and my Substack about my relapses. I've talked about them, I've written about them. Uh, I think it's important because it's it might sound cheesy, but it's not really about like how you get knocked down, it's how you about get knocked or how you get back up from getting knocked down, right? And biblically, right, man, like, there's so many broken characters in the Bible. Like, everyone that's not named Jesus. That was one of the things when my Bible study leader told me when I got back from that trip, Trey, love that guy. He's just like, "Man," he's like, he just started rattling off people from the Bible, and he's like, "You think what you did was worse than, what Moses did or what David did?" What Abraham did, what and it's like Solomon, like the list goes boom, 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 what Paul did. And I think his point was like, man, like Christ loves you, like get back on your horse, man. Like he's got big things for you. Uh, and I think at least for me, that's in my life right now, that's the way I see myself glorifying God is not, of course, in how I live my life privately, but also hopefully by just how I can share my story with people. And it's not all about the wins. It's also about like the losses. And, how do we recover from those? How do we learn from them? I think about a lot like my past marriage and looking at it as like what happened? Like what led to this? And how can I learn from that so that my next marriage can be something that is sanctified and that is centered in Christ, that is beautiful, that where I can be the man that I know I can be, and the man of integrity, of leadership, of courage, of consistency, you know? And I think those things like porn eats away at them. But yeah, man, the biblical, the faith, the connection with Christ, it's huge. And I think that's what I found as I was writing, because I want to be inclusive for people, right? Like if people aren't religious, I still want people to know, like, hey, this message still applies to you, you know? And there's always the doorway open. I always want to have that doorway open to people to say, hey, well, I'm a Christian. This is how I live my life. And the door's open for you. But I know totally how some people can kind of like see it and be like, oh, like, I don't really want to follow Mac because he's openly Christian or whatever. I don't want that to deter me from speaking about my faith. Uh, but I also like understand that some people can get into their faith in different ways. And I think I just try to, it's not like it's a balance, but my hope is that that people can see the way I'm living my life, hopefully, see that I'm a flawed person, that I have brokenness, but I'm choosing to keep going on this path of recovery, and to encourage people that we can all walk this path together, in our own ways. But it's a path worth walking, it's a path of growth, of things that you were talking about too, I think with porn is I feel like I used to be such an angry person, and I used to get so angry, and I used to just I feel like I have like a short fuse. Especially like when I was like talking with women. I just felt like I just, like, didn't really respect what they had to say, to be honest, sometimes, and I look back at, like, it's
Trying to get your
like,
fix,
in my
man.
head
Trying to get your
saying that,
fix.
I'm just like, "Whoa," like, that's crazy, but, there was definitely points in my life in college and stuff where, yeah, like, it's like almost like you're just, like, rating women on how they look, how you think they'd perform in bed, like, very pornographic thoughts, and, yeah, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of myself, I'm proud of people who are going, through this process or that I've gone through it. I mean, it's really a continuous process, I don't think it ever ends, as a man in this world.
That walk with Christ,
Gotta
man.
walk with Christ. But,
It
yeah,
yeah.
I just, like, hats off to everyone that's going through it because there's a lot of growth that is it's not easy, but, it's such a better way, I think, to live, because, I use the word, like, porn-free millennial, like, the free part's a big part. This hat that I have is from my church, but it says "Be free" on it. I love this hat. But it's just like, be free, like, free yourself, Free yourself and free people. That's what our motto is right now at the church is like, if you're free, you can help free other people. And what better way, I think, to serve God is to free yourself, obviously through him, but to help be a beacon so that others can find their freedom in their lives, right? Because if like one person going after sanctification and sanctifying their life, think about like the impact that has in their family, in their community with their friends. That's how the world becomes a better place. When we all have that awareness to look at these things in our lives that are hindrances, that are negative, are causing pain and destruction, and just taking a stand and saying, you know what, it stops here. Like, the chains stop here. Like, I'm breaking these chains. My kids aren't gonna have to inherit this from me because I'm making a stand today on it. And, uh,
Praise the
yeah,
Lord.
man. So, that's my soapbox. I'm sticking with it.
I love it, Mac. Well, I appreciate you sharing, man. And I gotta say this. I pray if it's in God's will that He will give you daughters, because I think you would be just such a great girl dad, man, with this masculine strength that you're carrying. Because It's so important, man, that we have men in the world that are modeling masculinity based on Christ. As you said, it's not perfect, man. None of
Yep.
us are. I mean, all you have to do is read the Bible and realize literally God uses imperfect people throughout the whole book, all of it, except Jesus. And even Jesus has moments where he's like, do we have to really do this, God? Do I have to really get crucified? Is this really what it's got to be? Like, so there's a lot of misconceptions about faith, Mac, that I'm hoping to dispel with the things that I'm
Yeah.
doing, very similar to what you're doing with porn, your porn free journey. And I love tying Christ to it and not saying it closes people off if they don't want to do that. But it's if you're going to invite Christ and you're struggling with porn, there's honestly no better reason to invite him into your world. I know it may seem counterintuitive, and I think that's the cultural stuff that we get conflicted by is that Christ wants us in our low moments, man. Like it's easy to celebrate him when things are good, but invite him into your world when you're in the pits of despair because he will leave the flock of 99 to go find the one. And that's why we're still here, man. Like, and I know this for sure. Jesus taught us that there's only one unforgivable sin, Mac, and that is the outright rejection of the Holy Spirit. Everything else, including that depraved porn habit that we may have or the things that we may do, like that's all forgivable, man. And Christ can redeem us in that sense. So it's nobody is beyond saving from that perspective, especially in the porn world and whatever it may be. And so I appreciate your courage to do that, man. And because you don't want to close the door to people, but also know like the doorway's open and that your journey to become porn free is going to be exponentially higher in terms of success if you have Christ with you. And so I just commend you, brother, for bringing that in and sharing it with authenticity and honesty. It takes a lot of courage to do that because, the model now is to pretend like I've got it all together and, act like I don't have any.
Yeah,
It just doesn't work though.
totally.
But well, Mac, brother, I appreciate having you on. Honestly, man, we got to do one in person one day. That's my goal. I think because we could chat for a few hours. I know we could. I can vision it in your RV. We're kicking it just somewhere in
That
nature,
sounds good.
dude. Like just letting it rip. Because this was awesome. So, Mac, I appreciate you, brother. If you want any final thoughts, and make sure to link to share people with where people can find you, and then we'll wrap up our conversation, man.
Yeah, so, yeah, if you're listening today and you're struggling, just know you're not alone and that you are loved and that you have some deep, deep power within you, this reservoir of power. Even though you feel weak right now, you're gonna find it. And when you find it, it's gonna be a game changer for you. And that power really is the power of Christ's love, the truth, right? The that our dirty cloth is gonna be clean. It's gonna be as white as snow, right? It's gonna like, he's gonna purify us when we repent and we have that awareness in our day of like, how can I glorify Christ? How can I follow him today? And take on that challenge because it's not like it's like an easy thing to do, right? It's a challenge, but it's a worthy pursuit. So that's just would be my message to people, listening to this is that I'm proud of you too. If you're pursuing this, it's something to be proud of. It's going against the culture. A lot of people, when I talk to them, some people are, like, really cool about it. That's kind of a fun thing I like to do when I travel, is just talk to random people about it. But some people look at you like you're crazy, and that's okay, like, you can
Hmm.
maybe I am a little bit crazy, crazy for Christ, crazy is not the worst thing that someone could say to me if they think it's weird that I'm, living a porn-free life and pursuing it, but, uh, no, just keep it up and to be honest, be honest, be honest, be honest, be honest. Truth, truth, truth. Tell the truth. Have an accountability partner if you can find one. Uh, there's different resources out there too. Uh, and I would just say for me, I have a Substack, so I'll do a weekly newsletter on Mondays, and I do a podcast. And the podcast really there's a lot of interviews on there that I do with different people. Brandon, I'd love to have you on my podcast too. Just saying, I think that'd be really cool to have you on mine. We can talk about that. But uh, what I try to do is just bring different perspectives about it. different people's journeys. I think with a lot of my writing, like I've written poetry about a million different things related to porn, but just trying to get like
Mhm.
people's minds thinking about it a little bit differently, maybe a different way than you would have thought. Analogies, like the last podcast I just did was a Halloween second annual Halloween special with a film professor, where we actually met in person and we talked about Hitchcock's Psycho, that classic horror film, and just how it relates to voyeurism, to modern day culture. Last year was the first one that we did with a film professor and one of his best friends who's got a Substack called The Underneath. He's like a dean of like a charter school, uh, English guy. We talked about vampirism and porn being a vampire. So just a lot of ways that you can skin the bunny of porn, put the stake in the vampire. That's what I'm trying to do. And then also, I do offer coaching too. So if anyone's interested in that, you can find that on my Substack page. I have a coaching tab if people are interested in that. Typically, what I do too is, hey, set up a consultation. Just email me. It's pornfreemillennialcoaching@gmail.com. And we can talk for an hour for free. Just talk to me, and just see where you're at, and then if you want to move forward coaching, cool. And if not, you have somebody you can talk to and just shoot some ideas off of as well. Get the ball rolling that way. So yeah, that's really what I got going on Substack and the podcast there.
Mac. Well, we'll make sure to list the link to those in the description down below. I really appreciate you coming on, Mac. I enjoyed this conversation. Literally could have went another hour, dude. That went really
Yeah,
fast.
man.
Really, really fast. Honestly, man, like my goal, I've been praying. We're gonna see what God has in store. I hope one day that I've got a studio in person I can invite people out to, and we can really sit down and get into the kind of Rogan style 3 hours in. We got our coffee, we got all of our goodies, and comfy and all that. But man, I just love it. So I really appreciate you, Mac. Honestly, I really enjoyed this conversation. So I hope listeners out there got some good nuggets from our conversation here with Mac and his porn free journey and how really just it's pervasive in our society and it's something that needs to be talked about. So I appreciate you, Mac, for having that courage to talk about it because more people need to be talking about it, man. It's still not understood fully how bad this stuff really
With
is for us. So I appreciate the work you're doing, brother. We'll definitely come on your show if you want to have me on. That sounds like a lot of fun. I would love to do that. Let's keep glorifying Christ. Let's keep celebrating the life that he gave us. And let's conquer these demons, man, because ultimately that's what it's about. So with that being said, God bless. And until next time.